The podcast you know and love is getting a bit of a facelift as we transition from audio only to a video podcast.
You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For 50 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Derek Fahsbender.
Welcome, listeners. I'm Derek Fahsbender, host of the B&H Photography Podcast. When I started hosting this podcast, I had more doubts than certainties. While I'd led plenty of interviews as host and moderator for B&H's event space, this was a different frontier because it was a passing off of the baton and not really a true fresh start. As a creative myself, I'm used to working with a blank canvas and building upon my own creations. I also value stewardship over outright ownership. So taking over a successful and long-running operation came with a lot of responsibility. How do we learn from and respect what came before us while still adding our own personal touch to the evolution process? We do so by staying true to ourselves and exemplifying the same love for the craft that made this podcast possible and successful in the first place. And we pay respect to those people who brought it to life and to the masses. This podcast wasn't a directive from upper management. It wasn't a, hey, go create a podcast kind of thing. It was born of passion by people who simply wanted to create something great with their hearts in the right place. To John, Jason, and Allan, what started as a water cooler talk type of idea tossed around at the office has become an industry standard for inspiring conversations that celebrate some of the most accomplished people in our industry. So much so that I initially balked at the idea of stepping up to the mic because I wasn't even sure I was worthy of carrying on the torch. But after a year and some change of following in your footsteps, I can say I've never felt more retroactively sure of a decision. To Jill and Mike, every new journey needs a good shepherd or two to make the new guy feel at home and make sure he doesn't put his foot in his mouth too much. If the goal was to carry on the podcast tradition while adding my own personality, you were both instrumental in making that happen. I've gotten to be a part of conversations with artists whose work I've studied and been infinitely inspired by. I faced down guests who are so accomplished that it's a challenge just to not sit and fanboy their work for an entire recording session, and engaged in on-air conversations with longtime friends that opened up new avenues of creative motivation for the listeners. As I've grown as a person, I've grown as an artist, and these discussions have played a huge role in who I've become and am actively becoming in my own creative process. I just returned from a trip to Japan with my family, and while standing on the train platform, watching my 9-year-old son race around with his camera, chasing photos of the Shinkansen racing by, it really hit me how deep inspiration runs, and how sometimes the greatest thing a photographer creates is the love for photography in another person. Now, of course, it was nice not being the only one holding up the family to stop and take photos, but being able to experience the trip through my son's eyes is a gift you cannot adequately put into words. Moments like that don't happen in a vacuum. They're shaped by years of conversations, by listening, by asking questions, and by being fortunate enough to spend time with people who have dedicated their lives to making meaningful work. When I joined this podcast, I thought my job was simply to continue telling other people's stories. What I didn't expect was how profoundly those stories would change my own. And as I sit here reflecting on the closing of one chapter and the opening of a new chapter, because we definitely aren't trying to write a new book here, I'm instantly taken back to our conversation with Brandon Stanton. During that episode, we landed on the evolution of his popular Humans of New York series. And to paraphrase Brandon's thoughts, what made this project so uniquely successful was that it wasn't an idea that was contrived. It was the byproduct of doing the work daily, bit by bit, piece by piece, going out into the streets and talking to people, making photos, hearing stories, all for, as Brandon put it, practicing the craft. And he's absolutely correct. That is how you get better at anything. You have to put in the work consistently and do it for the right reasons. And with time, the cream will rise to the top and good ideas arise from all that effort. Which brings me to the here and now. The podcast you know and love is getting a bit of a facelift as we transition from audio only to a video podcast. Now, this is not an obituary. We are updating the look and the feel, but continuing the same thought-provoking conversations with the same leaders and innovators and creators of the photography world. The B&H Photography Podcast was born of passion, and that same love of the craft is still the engine that drives it today. While I'd love to lay out a roadmap for the journey ahead, I realize my job is to continue on, day by day, bit by bit, piece by piece, doing the work and enjoying the ride. The same hard work and devotion that brought us to this point will continue to lead us into our future. We have built not only a legacy, but a community of like-minded individuals who want to be endlessly inspired. So to the listeners who have made us what we are today, a resounding thank you. I hope you continue to enjoy what we bring to the airwaves and now to the screen. We value your continued support, comments, and ideas for future topics and guests, and welcome you on this new ride alongside us. We invite you to please subscribe and follow at BH Podcast Network on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok to stay up to date on all of our exciting updates to the video podcast and, of course, future shows. And for now, you can also find us on the Explorer blog where we post photos from our guests along with our show notes. I'm your host, Derek Fahsbender. Jill Waterman is our creative producer. Our technical producer and video editor is Peter Maziars. And our executive producer is Dana Glidden. On behalf of us all, thank you so much for tuning in today. And I look forward to seeing you and you seeing me on the other side.